From Cornwall to Birmingham and Johnston and Bexhill, here's Ruben Spire on the radio.
Hello to Joy Frost. How are you today?
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Ruben.
Thank you for letting me chat to you today. So, can you tell me, how long have you been a singer-songwriter for?
Well, I have been a singer-songwriter my entire life. I wrote my first song when I was 2, and I only know that because my parents actually recorded it for me. And so I'm very lucky to have a copy of that I wrote that 30 years ago. So 30 years, I guess.
A long time ago when you first wrote your first piece of music. So, I don't know if you recorded your debut single back in 2018 in the studio, or did it from home, maybe?
Well, I have recorded all of my songs myself from my home studio, with the exception of one song, which I recorded in my audio engineering school studios. But I recorded that one as well myself.
So, what was it like recording from your home studio?
Well, it is actually wonderful. I really love having the privacy of doing it at home because then you can take as much time as you'd like. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and so I'm grateful to be able to do as many takes as I need to feel satisfied. But let me show you this microphone. So this is the microphone that I recorded my latest album on, the Roaring 2020s. And this microphone is actually broken now because it is quite old and I've treated it beyond roughly. I actually used to be a busker for a few years in Dublin, and I would sing with this microphone in the rain. And so it's been through it, kind of like me, but it accompanied me up until the very last song of the Roaring 2020s.
No, you're gonna might have to buy a new one.
Well, I've got this new microphone here, which is my favorite. It's the Browner Phantom.
So, I know you got a producer. Are you working with the same producer that you released your first single with, or have you worked with different producers?
I've worked with a few different ones. So, for my first single, I worked together with this producer from Austria. His name's Axel Bauer. And we co-wrote, I don't know how, like over 20 songs together at least, because I paid my way through college working together with him, and we created a lot of songs for film and television libraries around the world. And some of those songs are not released, but we made them. And I've worked together with a few other ones. Chris Harms from Lord of the Lost, we did a song together. Then also Richie McCourt. He was wonderful. He's a Dublin-based producer. I'm a producer myself, and the Roaring 2020s, I worked heavily together with producer Paul Croteau from the USA, and he's a jazz musician as well. And so he and I are basically best friends, and we did 9 of the 20 songs on this double album together.
Wow. So, what's it like working with your producer that you got now for the latest album that you just now released?
Oh, it's wonderful. He's very patient, which I really treasure in a producer because, like, as I mentioned, I can be a bit of a perfectionist, and it takes a certain temperament. Maybe some producers find me annoying because of that, but he doesn't mind that. He finds the same satisfaction with making sure the tiniest little details are perfect, same as me. So we're very compatible in that way.
So, can you tell me more about your debut single release called Love Me All the Time?
Oh, yeah, that was years ago. Love Me All the Time is from my first album, which is eponymous. Or I can't remember if it's eponymous or eponymous, but it's the word that means it's your name, the opposite of anonymous. I'm mixing it up right now. But the album's called Joy Frost, just named after me. And that's one of the tracks I did together with Axel Bauer.
So, what was it like getting your debut album released to the world?
Well, it actually got leaked early by my distributor, so it was very stressful. My ex-distributor, I should say, because I I dumped them after that. But it came out 3 weeks earlier than I thought it would. So I was kind of scrambling, and I didn't get to celebrate it in the same mindful way that I'd hoped to. Like what I did, my most recent album, Roaring 2020s, I had an album party, I had a cake. I invited many of my listeners to join me on a Zoom call, and we actually spent some time together, and that was wonderful. But the first album, it didn't have that same kind of magic because I didn't even know it came out.
But I was a bit disappointed about that.
Well, it all ended up just totally, it was fine in the end.
So we'll move on a little bit. So,
Sure.
you know about the single that is called Too Sensitive.
Yes. So that song began as a songwriting exercise for me to just come up with different ways to twist the old idiom, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Most of the lyrics are actually just variations of that expression.
So
Of course, I was told, you're too sensitive, more times than I can possibly count in my formative years. And so I really resonated with that.
So where did you get your inspiration for songwriting?
I feel I couldn't really explain where, only that I'm just a radio and I pick up the signal. That's all. And I couldn't explain it to you. It just drops into my mind. And I'm just grateful for that.
So have you always been a jazz singer?
Yes and no. I tried everything, but like I even used to be, well, I've always loved jazz from the start. Jazz, that's the first songs I ever learned how to sing. My very first job when I was 14 years old was singing jazz songs at a rest home. And they would book me every other month. And I would sing for 45 minutes all these old songs to the residents. And it was just my favorite job. I did that until I left Utah. They booked me for many years. And I became close friends with many of the people who lived there. And it was really rewarding work. Because I love those songs, and it was so wonderful to see people just light up, kind of time travel back to when they felt healthy and in love, and it was beautiful. So I always loved jazz, and it was always a part of my life. But I did try many other things. I was the lead singer of a bluegrass band when I was in high school. I tried pop music, acoustic. I tried it all, but I finally found my way back to my roots, which is jazz. And I've kind of blended it, so it's not pure jazz. I need to say, it's definitely not pure jazz. I would call it alternative jazz, or perhaps a mix of jazz and dark pop. So I call it dark jazz pop, even though that doesn't really exist.
So can you know about the second album that was called Sexual Woman?
Yes, that came out in 2022. So that was a compilation of 7 tracks that I did together with my first record label called 45 Records, which is a small indie label in the UK. And I was signed to them for a 6-single contract, but an album must be 7 songs according to Spotify rules. And so there's a remix of one of the songs, so that way we could have it be 7 tracks and be an album from all the songs I did together with 45 before I left after the contract ended.
So was it like working for, I guess you were signed with that record company? So what was what was that like?
It was a beautiful learning experience. And I feel like it really toughened me up and made me feel a bit bolder and braver, and taught me quite a bit of audacity and courage, which I was really in great need of developing. So I'm very thankful for that. And we had this really cool collaboration together. Probably my favorite part of working with 45 Records is that they helped me do a virtual concert in this video game called Avakin Life, which is an iPhone, Android game where it's kind of similar to The Sims. And I got animated by this team, and the virtual concert was pre-recorded, so it would start anytime a user entered the venue, the virtual venue, and there was a backstage paid area, and I got to make digital merch. Like, it was so cute and fun. And I'd actually been wishing to be in a video game one day ever since I was 8 years old, because I used to play this video game called Space Channel 5 on the Dreamcast. I mean, it's so niche, but they animated Michael Jackson into that video game. And I thought, oh man, I want to be in a video game. And then it happened 20 years later with Advocate Life, and 45 Records made that happen for me.
So we're going to move on now to the present year. So can you tell me what songs that released called Solitude?
Solitude. Yeah, so that was the very first single. Hold on, my mic stand is slipping. I hope this doesn't make too much noise. I'm so sorry. So Solitude was the very first track that I released off of the Roaring 2020s. I released it a year before the album came out because I actually hadn't finished the rest of the album yet, but I wanted to release some music to kind of sprinkle a little foreshadowing into the direction that I was going to be changing my music to, which was a blend of modern pop and jazz. So people would be ready and not too confused by the shift in my sound. Of course, that song is from 1936, so it's famously recorded by Billie Holiday. Her version is, there's a German word called unschlagbar. But you can't beat her version. It's wonderful. But Solitude was really the first track that helped me develop the sonic world of the mix of jazz and pop that I used for the rest of the album.
So could you tell me more about your latest single called Authenticity?
Authenticity?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So that was I believe I released that in June. It was the next single to promote the album before I released it in August. Authenticity is really kind of a confessional song. It's a big power ballad in a minor key. And it's my first explicit track. I believe you're going to play a clean version after our interview. And I labeled the clean version for because I'm from Utah, so my family's all Mormon. I'm not, but my mom, for her, because I love her so much, I made a Mormon family version just for her so she can listen to that. So that's why I called it that. But Authenticity is all about just finally accepting maybe pieces of your shadows that you hid before, all the things that made you afraid that you'd be rejected, and to just own them and to let go of fear of being seen as your true self. That's what the song is about.
So can you tell me more about your latest album called The Roaring 20s? So
The Roaring 2020s.
The 20s, yeah. So why did you come up with that name for that album?
Well, I always wanted to be a singer in the 20s, in the next 20s. So, like I said, I love jazz from the beginning of my life, and I used to watch old jazz documentaries with my father. We watched this Ken Burns documentary series about Benny Goodman together. I think that was in the year 2000 or 2001. I must have been 8 or 9. And I realized that night, watching that with my dad, I was going to grow up to be a singer in the next 20s. The 20s. And so I made a vow that I would make a jazz record in the 20s. And so I did that with this album, The Roaring 2020s.
I know you put quite a bit of hard work into making it.
Yeah, 2 years.
So can you tell me how you went about making that album? So there's no hard work on. I saw you on your.
Yeah, well, I mean, I produced the entire album independently because after I finished my contract with 45 Records, I chose not to renew, and instead I founded. I mean, it sounds so silly, but I founded my own record label. I mean, it's just me. It's basically like indie artist 2.0. And so my label is called Frosty Records. I mean, it's very cheesy, but it just helps me feel really positive and just to approach my work with a better attitude and also better accounting. So I'm grateful to have the company registered, and it really helps put me in a good mindset for my work. But it's basically just independent because it's just me. I'm the only employee of Frosty Records, So I funded the entire album myself out of pocket. So I own all the masters. So I guess kind of like Taylor's version, this is the Roaring 2020's Joy's version, because I do control the master recordings as the executive producer of the record. And that's kind of why it took so long, because you're funding it yourself.
Yeah, it's not cheap, it?
It's not, especially because I want to pay musicians, and to make jazz, you must have excellent musicianship. It is non-negotiable. I mean, with pop, it's possible to just, click in the MIDI shapes. But with jazz, a musician is irreplaceable. And so I employed 12 musicians for this record. I hired saxophone players, pianists, cellists, upright bass, guitar. I hired a French horn player. I've really tried to bring some true musicianship into this record. Oh, there's a real trombonist. It's just wonderful. I had so many talented people lend me their gifts for this.
So I know your voice is an instrument. So did you play any instruments? I know you got that keyboard you got behind you there.
It is, yes. I play piano and I play guitar, but I wouldn't say that I'm great. I've just learned to the point where I can accompany myself and to write my songs, and that I have wrist issues. I had to have a wrist surgery when I was 18 on my tendons. I went to the prom in double wrist braces. So I've always had a little bit of trouble. I mean, I used to be a great guitarist, but I lost that because of the tendon issues in my surgery. So I have to rely on the musicianship of others.
So I know you just finished making this album, your new album. So is there any plans to write any new music in the future?
Oh gosh, I'm going to say something so strange. And I really hope I don't write any more songs for a while, just because I have a backlog of over 80 songs that I need to finish recording and releasing first. And I feel like I've got just so much music already that I want to do justice by, that I want to focus on recording all that and sharing that and promoting it before I get distracted with new music.
So is the Rolling 2020s, is that like a part one?
Yes, it is. So it's a double album. So part one is out now. 10 of the 20 tracks that I've prepared are now available for streaming, and part two will be out in spring or early summer of 2025.
So will you be making another part two CD?
I will, yeah. I will. But luckily, all of that's already produced. It's already recorded. So right now, rather than writing new material, I'm focusing on creating the music videos for the songs.
About making the videos, is that quite...
Yeah. Say it again?
Is it making the videos quite hard work? Is it quite costly making the videos?
Oh, it's not too hard. It's just time consuming. So I have a background in video production. I used to work at my college television station back when I was 19, Salt Lake City Community College TV, and I was the associate producer of a music show. And I learned so much about video editing and video production, and I have relied on those skills my entire career. And so I'm able to create the videos, but just ordering the costumes, getting the ideas, because I'm trying to make some bigger, brighter productions now. So I'm going to be hiring background dancers and things like that. So it's just coordinating locations. It just takes a little bit of time. So that's what I'm focusing on right now.
So can you tell me, how's it being an independent artist for you now?
Oh, it feels so much better. I feel like my attitude and my mindset has significantly healed from, say, 4 years ago. Because in 2020, I felt very discouraged. I was busking at the time, and I had a vocal injury because I had busked out too long in the cold because I was having a hard time paying my bills. And I was just really at rock bottom. Like I had $5 left. Like I was really, really suffering. And I think that I had grown just a little resentful and hadn't learned to appreciate the true blessings that come with being an independent artist, which is the creative control, which is just the fun of getting to have a hand in not just the songwriting, but in every piece of your art from the beginning to the end. And it's really quite satisfying. And I find myself much more grateful, even if it is still a lot of hard work.
I'm guessing now you're your own boss, so you can...
I don't. No, I don't. It was a good chapter of my life, but it is closed now.
So now you can do your own path.
Yeah. But busking it had a really important lesson for me. Because I find that if I had never been a busker, my voice would never have developed the way that it did. I think that busking made me a better singer. And also it helped me find my vocal style. Because I would get very bored just singing the same songs with no one paying attention. So to have more fun, I would just try to sing it new ways every time. So I'd try like just a velvet vibrato way, and then I would try just like a crunchy way. Then I would try just a vocal fry way. Then I would try belting way, just to entertain myself. And then I found new colors in my voice that way that I never would have found otherwise, if that makes sense. And then I used that time busking to practice mixing and matching between those colors, and I used those skills on this album of Roaring 2020s. And also the vocal injury, I think, changed my voice a little bit as well, but I have recovered from that now. But my voice is different.
So I knew you already done a part 2,
Yeah.
released next year, but have you thought about working with another jazz artist?
Working with another jazz artist.
Yeah.
Oh, I would love that. I mean, of course, my favorite jazz musicians are no longer with us. Like, my favorite jazz artist of all time is Ella Fitzgerald. She is my ultimate inspiration, and I think she's so wonderful. But I guess with current jazz artists, Samara Joy, she's wonderful. And we share one name. Like, my first name is her last name. It would be cool to collaborate with her. I mean, there's so many wonderful jazz musicians still around, and new ones emerging as well.
So, have you got any up-and-coming gigs coming up very soon?
Yes, I do. So, at the end of August, I have 2 festival performances coming up. First on August, not the end of August, it's October. At the end of October, I'll be performing on the 24th at the Galway Comedy Festival with the Dirty Circus. That is Ireland's oldest burlesque show, and they've invited me to be the singer for that night and perform 4 songs from the record. So I'll do that on the 24th with the Dirty Circus there in Galway. And then I was also booked for the 3rd year in a row to sing at the Cork Jazz Festival. And that's the last days of October.
So have you got any plans to come to the UK? Some great venues in the UK.
Not currently, but it's still on my wish list.
In the near distant future.
Yeah, I would love to come do a show in UK.
So finally, can you tell me, listeners, we're going to find you on your social media?
Yeah, so my name is Joy Frost, like happy, like joy like happiness, and frost like, cold. So you can find me, Joy Frost, on basically any social media platform. My website, joyfrost.com. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and hopefully pretty easy for anyone to find.
So can you tell me more about your Patreon for my listeners? Because I know Patreon's quite good things about that.
Oh, my Patreon. Yeah, so I have had a Patreon since 2017, where my most supportive listeners have helped enable me. They support me, and I mean, this is kind of how I get by. I fund my own record myself. So it's really, I'm so dependent on the support of my listeners. And on Patreon, the most generous and kindest ones have all gathered to really help me make my music happen. I share little rewards, like I share handwritten lyrics. I have little gifts and merch items that are only available through Patreon. Also, my favorite thing that I offer there is a magnet of my mental health self-care list that I use to help manage my depression, anxiety, and PTSD. And I have a digital version available for free for everyone, but I have an actual magnet on my fridge because on a bad day, I just need it visible. And so I give that to everybody who supports me on Patreon. And it's just my little way of giving back.
Thank you for letting me chat to you today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ruben. It's been my pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye.